So, hi, I'm Christophe Zajac-Denek from I'm Kind of a Big Deal podcast, and I'm the guest on the Inspiring Influencers Show.
Welcome to the Inspiring Influencers Show. Paul and Jennifer Hensel host interviews with inspiring thought leaders, storytellers, entrepreneurs, and legacy builders just like you. Learn from experts about finding your voice, mastering your mindset, and creating movements with your message. Enjoy uplifting stories and powerful strategies. Get ready to transcend to new levels of success, happiness, and joy.
Hi, everyone. This is Paul and Jennifer Hensel
Hi.
From the Inspiring Influencers Show. We are so excited to have Christophe Zajac-Denek as our guest today. Christophe is an American actor, stuntman, professional drummer, speaker, and podcaster. He has appeared on multiple talk shows, including Jimmy Kimmel Live. And if that long list isn't enough, he is also extremely athletic, energetic, and a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us today, Christophe. Great to have you.
Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. It's great to be here with you, Paul and Jennifer. Thanks.
We first met you at PodFest last year because we're all podcasters, and we got to hang out and we went to a party and we just had fun. You are our favorite person that we met at PodFest.
Oh, thank you so much. No, the feeling is mutual. I loved our conversation. I mean, we were in a super loud dance bar trying to have like a meaningful conversation. And we're going to continue this later on. Yeah, for sure. Cause this is too good. But yeah, it was such a great time meeting the two of you and hearing your stories as well.
Yeah. And then after that, the next day I happened to see you speak, and your talk was incredibly inspiring. And your presence on stage, man, was just outstanding.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that I appreciate that. That was my first in-person keynote. So I was so nervous to get on stage and do that. But I appreciate you so much for the kind words. Thank you.
You never would have guessed that never.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was just in my hotel room anytime that I was not at a loud dance party trying to memorize my speech. But it was, I mean, I guess what was really easy or comforting about that whole situation was I was asked to mostly talk about my story and share my story. So, I'm really close to my story. And so that was, wasn't too far from what I know already.
Well, you told us that you loved surfing, and our son loves surfing. So I remembered that about you. And you told us that you did some stunt work and acting, but you didn't tell us you were famous, dude.
I need to lead with that, right? Like, hey,
yeah,
you're so humble. You're so humble.
That's so weird. I don't know that I think of myself as famous. I live in Hollywood and I know and sometimes work with some famous people. And so I feel so far from, you look at my Instagram and it doesn't seem like I'm famous at all, but I guess working on it.
You've done a lot of impressive work. We didn't realize you're on Jimmy Kimmel and all this kind of stuff, but we're just thrilled to know you and have you on the show.
That's what it's all about, right? I mean, good personalities with good personalities.
Yeah. And before moving on, I do have to ask, doing some research and checking you out a little more, is there anything you don't do?
I don't play baseball and I don't go snowboarding because I don't like the cold, and I have a spinal fusion, so I can't twist. So those are things that I don't do. Yeah. I don't do falling stunts anymore either because of all the surgeries and spinal fusion and stuff like that. So yeah, I have lines. Don't, Paul, you don't have to, I have lines.
We saw your film, Standing on Water, which was excellent, by the way. It was very well done. And in the show notes, we're going to link to that. But could you share with our audience your story and how that led to what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll mention a little bit about Standing on Water. So, and I'll kind of tie that in with my backstory. So I'm a little person. I'm 4'4" tall, and I'm from Detroit, Michigan originally. And I grew up just I've had 2 reconstructive leg surgeries and a spinal fusion, and thankfully, I mean, miraculously, I am able to be really physically active and athletic and do a lot of the things except for baseball and snowboarding that I want to do. And I've ended up touring in a rock and roll band throughout my life. And then I moved to Hollywood and started to work on productions here. And I've always been obsessed with surfing. I've always just kind of been drawn to water, into the ocean, and being able to stand on water on a wave on a surfboard just blew my mind. And I was instantly obsessed at 14 years old. We would go to Florida for Easter school break. And I would just end up in surf shops and looking through magazines, just looking at these photos of waves all over the world, thinking how cool this was. And it just kind of spoke to me in this weird way. And I was always into surf and skate culture. So when I moved to California, when I left the rock and roll band and moved to California, I just started surfing as much as I possibly could. And I never saw another little person surf. That was something that was just what I wanted to do. I just, tried it, and I was physically able enough to do it pretty poorly at the start, which is how everybody starts out surfing. Like you suck pretty bad for a long time. And I just loved being out in the ocean. It was a cleansing moment for me. It was an attachment to nature. It was me connecting with myself and learning how to read the ocean as a study in itself. You go out there and you're kind of battling this gigantic beast that you can also kind of tame and ride, its energy. And it's pretty amazing. So I just became a super nerd about it, and I just loved it. And so when I moved to California, I started to surf regularly, and I also kind of shifted out of doing music stuff, and I shifted into acting, mostly because of my size. And after 14 years now of working in the acting industry, I have mostly been offered elf roles, leprechaun roles, demon roles. I've played a lot of roles in a ton of foam, in monster suits, in a ton of prosthetics. So my face has rarely been seen, even though I've worked on, 30 projects or something, or more than that. And after 10 years or so, I'm thinking, why doesn't anybody ever want to see my face? Like I know I didn't grow up as a trained actor, but still, like I can never get anything where my face is shown. And then I realized, oh, this is what little people are offered. This is what we in society are relegated to playing in these productions. And so I started my podcast, and I started to realize how discrimination is kind of handed down, and how discrimination, especially for little people, is confusing. It's misrepresented. It's pretty just blatant as well. It's really across the board. And I wanted to talk about that. And so tying it back to Standing on Water, Tommy Corey is the director of that series. And his series, I like to describe his series as showcasing people who do things who don't look like they should be doing those things, because he has all these different all these different people and coming from different backgrounds, and embodying different situations, doing what they love in the outdoors. And I was just so grateful that he was interested enough in me to make a piece about me. And it's about a little person surfing. And for me, being from Detroit, Michigan, that's like a dream come true. So that's kind of like my story tied in. I don't know if I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a beautiful film, and we'll link to it in the show notes. And you've done such wonderful advocacy work in this area. And one of the things is your podcast. I know you're on a little bit of a hiatus, but it's the type of podcast you can go back and listen to. We've listened to some episodes, and it's so inspiring, like anybody can listen to, because it's just every episode is just filled with stories and really, really inspiring interviews that you have, and some that you've done on your own. You have your story in there in one of the episodes of acting and coming to LA, which is so interesting.
Yeah, thanks. For so long, I felt like I wanted to deny my own existence, or I just had really low self-esteem about myself and where I fit in this world. And then once I started to talk to other little people, I realized that other people have similar experiences and maybe similar feelings as well. And I just think that, I come from the background of having dwarfism, but I think a lot of people can relate to, similar feelings that my guests talk about.
Yeah. So what are some of the tips you can give people for getting motivated, staying motivated, because you've shown such, motivation and inspiration through your career journey and all these things that you've been doing. I know you've won some awards for your surfing, right? I
won a couple of competitions here in California, which again, that blows my mind. If you were to tell 14-year-old Christophe that he's going to surf in California and win some money for surfing, again, that would have been just bonkers. Yeah, I mean, staying motivated, I guess, I don't know. I still try to, I'm still figuring that out. I have just so many ideas. I guess maybe one thing is like, find the belief in yourself, be true to yourself. When you sit around and when you allow yourself to be bored and you allow yourself to just kind of sit with yourself and sit with your past and sit with your present, what speaks to you, and not and embracing that and just not being judgmental about what that is, I think I don't think that's easy. I think that's really tough because there's so much external judgment that comes in that says, well, is that going to make you money, or is that going to get you seen by the people that you quote unquote think you should be seen by, or whatever that judgment is. And I think if you can listen to, your heart and whatever that part of your mind is saying to you, I think, there can be happiness in that. And then I think the other thing, like once you find that and you are on your path, I think one of the best things is to focus on the small successes and focus on the little. And I mean, you guys have a great podcast. Like it didn't just like happen, you have little success, but you have this goal, of being, of having a certain number of downloads or having a certain number of outreach or having a certain number of episodes. And you just have to, for me anyway, I have to focus on the little bits that bring me success or happiness, because if I focus too much on the stuff that's just feels so far out of reach, it makes me just kind of not want to do anything.
You've accomplished so much,
Yes.
more than most people.
Yeah.
So what would you say, what would you give advice to somebody who's starting out in the industry or really just starting out in life? What kind of tips can you give for, being inspired to really follow your passion? Because you've really done that. You've really followed your passion, because it's just as hard to do something you don't like, right?
I have, there are a couple friends that I was just having this conversation with a close friend the other day about, what feeds your passion and what feeds your pocketbook, and is that the same thing? And because a lot of times, the money, like it makes you able to have comfort in your life, but it might not actually fuel your real passion. And I think, the advice is be true to yourself. Listen to yourself above all. And I'm guilty of it too. I reach out to people and bounce ideas and wait to see what they're going to say. And then I evaluate, well, this friend's past decisions were this, but they're telling me to do this other thing. So I don't know if I should really follow this advice. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be with yourself, and whatever you want to create is going to be an extension of you. And I think if you listen to what that truly is, then that's the most important thing. And then once you figure out a mission and a path, and just maintaining the consistency and drive for that. I just read a book. Is it great? I think it's right here. Greg McKeown. It's called Essentialism. And I've struggled with this my entire life, is having so many, ideas of things that I want to do, playing drums, surfing, photography and writing, and like all these different things that I dip my toe in. But to be an essentialist, you kind of have to strip away the things that really don't speak directly, from your heart. And that's really, really tough. So I think honing down what it is that you really want to focus on can be an important task too.
So on top of all of your personal pursuits and your career pursuits, you advocate for your community. And so what do you want as far as your advocacy? What do you want people to know? Like, what is your message around that? What do you want people to know?
Yeah, the message around my advocacy for little people and dwarfism is, I mean, that's a great question. I want people to understand that we as little people are not scary. We are just like other people. We deserve acceptance and parity and to be seen and heard in communities, and that it's okay to have exposure to us, even if it's an awkward attempt at exposure. A lot of people say, or ask me, what term should you call a little person if you meet them in the wild? What is that? And my response is always, you should call them their name. And if you think about it, you can't know somebody else's name unless you create an introduction. And so introductions are always sticky and weird and awkward. And if you go up to someone who's disabled, I mean, I think that little people are disabled individuals in this world. And I think that can be even stickier but I mean, going up to somebody and having an uncomfortable first encounter or an introduction, I think is so much better than avoiding them or putting in your head that they don't exist, or even worse, taking a photo or snickering or making some, off color comment. I think embracing that awkwardness, and it's not easy for me too, even though I'm saying this, like, I'm in the same boat. I'm still trying to figure it out. There's sometimes when, I get approached by kids and they're like, well, why are you so little? And I have an honest conversation with them, and most of the time it goes well, but sometimes it doesn't. And, it's just, that's life. That's people. That's how it goes sometimes. And I think if you're just honest, that will shine through. And that's the most important thing, because even if it's awkward, that person isn't going to forget that encounter immediately, and they can still think about it and, maybe be better the next time.
Yeah, for sure. I just love how you walk your talk, like you are who you are. You faced numerous challenges that most people won't face, but you're someone who hasn't got stuck in their story as well. And, you've risen above and you've succeeded, at everything you're putting your hand on. So, you're just a cool guy, man. You are.
Well, thanks. I stay home a lot. Thank you. That's a very nice compliment. I consistently feel like the work is, when I do something, I feel like, oh, this is cool. This is great. Let's enjoy it. And then there's more work to be done. Like, let's keep on keeping on. Like it doesn't seem like it ever ends. And I sort of love that about this mission, because I feel like with every person, with every show, with every, presentation I give, with every moment that I can have, I'm moving the rock forward, those little successes, right? That's kind of where my mind is, of all the little successes.
Yeah. And that really helps to look at it that way. I've done that too. Hey, I want to ask you, what do you have going on now that you want to talk about, or, anything else that you want people to know?
Yeah. So I'm very excited because I just had I just wrapped photography on a feature film that I was able to star in, which I can't say anything more at all about the film. But it's really exciting for me to have participated in this project, and there are a couple other projects coming up that aren't solidified yet, so I can't really say anything about those either, but it's nice to have continued work. I mean, as an actor in LA, it's like such a slog for just about everyone at a lot of different levels in this town. And so I feel very, very grateful that I have that. I'm just consistently working on my craft. I have some writing projects that are in the works. I've never written or sold or pitched an entire project, and that is the goal, whether it happens this year or next year or the year after. That's the thing. Like I really want to be a player or an influence on changing the messaging around us as little people. And I think, if I can do that, that's what I have to do.
Good for you. Oh, that's awesome.
So
That's
yeah,
great.
thank you.
Hey, so just to kind of like wrap things up, do you have a favorite quote that you?
I do have a favorite quote. I knew you were going to ask me these questions because I listened to some episodes. So there are two quotes. One is like kind of heavy, and then the other one is just what I've learned in LA. So the heavy quote is from this Keith Jarrett record that I purchased. If you're not familiar with Keith Jarrett, he's this incredibly talented jazz pianist who made a lot of avant-garde records in the 70s, which is pretty experimental and far-reaching music. And the album is called The Survivor's Suite. And the quote is, and those, oh God, did I just forget this? And those that create out of the Holocaust of their own inheritance anything more than a convenient self-made tomb shall be known as survivors. Basically, it's like if you, I read it as if you just remain in, in stagnation, if you remain in what people think you should be, or follow along with what everybody else does, you essentially aren't, you're not pushing yourself and you're not moving forward. And I've had this conversation recently with other friends where it's like, no, changing this messaging that's survival for us. Like that's survival for us as disabled folks and for people that have a different life. And then the other quote that I kind of just made up after moving to LA is, you never know. Because LA is so weird and life is weird on top of it. And my life is weird.
Nice. I like it. Who's inspired you the most?
That is such a tough one, but I'm going to go back to a former drum instructor of mine from college. His name is Gerald Cleaver, and he kind of started his professional drumming career, again, an avant-garde. I love jazz music and I love avant-garde, just out there, crazy, beautiful music. And he's a drummer, and he started a little bit later in his life, but he has 100% embraced it. He's so talented. And I try to see him perform whenever I can and try to accumulate all the work that he's played on. And he's just taught me so much, just like through observation and through lessons. He's incredible.
That's amazing. Well, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be on this show. I know there's been scheduling back and forth, but I really appreciate you having me on and letting me be a part of your wonderful show.
And we really hope our listeners go to our show notes at inspiring.show so they can get the link to Standing on Water, the film that Christophe is in. Beautiful, beautiful film. A must watch for every human, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And also to your podcast. Can you tell us the name and the link to your podcast again?
Yep. The podcast is called I'm Kind of a Big Deal.
Love that title.
Oh, that's neat. And the slogan?
I'm kind of a big deal. Little people, huge stories.
So cool. Yeah. Thanks for being here, Christophe.
Thank you so much, Paul and Jennifer. I really appreciate y'all.